So,
There we go.
okay,
Okay. It didn't have my like microphone connected for some reason.
got it.
Okay, cool. Yay, let's get started. Do you want to introduce
Okay.
yourself, your name, what you like to do outside, and your occupation?
Okay. My name is Johanna Flashman. What I like, I'm probably going to be a terrible podcast guest, to be entirely honest. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. We can
um,
always edit it later. That's my job.
okay, cool. So what I like to do outside, I hike, climb, surf, camp, and live in my van full time. So do a lot of traveling around. And then my occupation currently is a freelance writer, SEO specialist, and editor.
Heck yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, today we're really here to talk about the fact that you wrote a frickin' book, which is really exciting.
Thank
I
you.
don't know if you want to start with this, but I would love to hear more. I know like a few people who have written books in the past year, and it seems like everybody has somehow done it differently, whether it was like how they wrote it or the publishing. And I would love to hear your take on like start to finish how you went from like I have this idea to actually turning it into a book.
Yeah,
So that's
sure.
like a serious feat.
Yeah, yeah, it was a lot of work. So my path to writing this book was probably a little bit different than what many people have had with like book publishing or writing their own book, because the publisher I had worked with as a research assistant for a different, for another one of my clients who was writing a book. So they kind of knew my working style, and they have their, like, the publisher has their own series of beer hiking books. So they were looking for someone
Oh,
to
cool.
write Southern California. Knew I lived in California and I had sort of casually mentioned that I was thinking about moving down to San Diego. So they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to write the book.
That's
And they
very
kind of,
cool.
yeah, I guess so. The client who I was working with that publisher recommended, like, put my name in there. And
That's
so,
amazing. I feel like the referrals are what will actually get you to succeed. And when you get to the point of like, as a freelancer, actually getting referrals is so massive for your business. Like it's a completely different job once you start getting
right,
referrals.
yeah. So it was really thanks to that client in a lot of ways, that I got into the running for this book, and they asked if I was interested, and hiking and beer, why not?
Yeah. Sounds
So
dope to me.
yeah, so it was sort of, so it was a little bit different because it wasn't my idea to begin with,
Mm,
than what other people's like experiences with writing a book is necessarily. But so
mm.
I wrote like a sample chapter for them to make sure my writing was sort of fit what they were looking for and that I could follow directions. Basically, they just wanted someone who could construct sentences and follow directions. Pretty low bar there,
For
but
sure. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so yeah, I got the contract for that, and then started writing. Well, started like making plans for which hikes I was gonna do. It ended up being 40 hikes and 40 breweries. And then started hiking and started writing. Yeah, that
How long did that
took,
take you?
let's see, I started my first chapters in like December of last year and
Mm.
finished the whole, like all of the chapters in August. So a total
Wow.
of like 9 months, like having a
That's not
baby.
bad. That's actually pretty fast for a whole book. Yeah.
It was It was a lot of work, yeah. I think it was pretty sped up,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, but, yeah, I didn't
Did you
I
have other client work during that time?
yeah. So
Oh,
I
damn.
yeah, so my plan, I had like this whole structured idea of like I was gonna do 2 hikes a week, and like the hike was gonna
Yeah.
take each hike would take maybe half a day. They weren't super long hikes. And then I could write up
Mhm.
the chapter in 4 or 5 hours and call it
Mhm.
good. In my head, I was thinking, okay, this is gonna be like 2 or 3 days a week commitment. It
Yeah.
was not. Um, yeah,
It's never
so
what we think. It doesn't matter how much you track your time, you're never gonna be, like, perfectly accurate.
right, exactly, and then so I was, like, trying to get 2 hikes a week, and in my head, like, if I was getting 2 hikes a week, I was gonna be done with 50 hikes by June, and it was
Mm.
gonna like,
Mhm.
with time to spare, was gonna be great, and then, like, issues with my van came up throughout, and rain,
Yeah.
and like other clients, and it got pushed back a whole lot. So I did
Yeah.
not, and then the last 2 months, I think, so like most of June, July, and August, I was not working with any other clients. Or
Mm.
like
Mhm.
I had like one ongoing client, which was like 10 hours a week, if or 10 hours a month. Sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, that that last push was almost entirely on the book.
Yeah, like, full time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I feel like it would be hard to juggle something of that caliber and that size with other clients.
Yeah, it was the first several months was definitely a lot of work because I was starting to gain traction with my freelancing work as well again. And so I had
Mhm. Mhm.
3 or 4 different clients and was like getting referred or having people find me through my website and work, and it was
Mm.
going pretty well of being like, cool, I'm making like a decent income on freelancing now.
Yeah.
Like I have disposable income for once. um,
Mm. That's
which is
huge.
great. And then I kind of had to sideline all of my clients,
Yeah, 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 that's so
which
challenging too, because you're like you rely on momentum when it comes to freelancing
exactly.
if you want, like, long-term
Right.
success, yeah.
Yeah. So so
How
that
long were
was
you
tricky.
freelancing before the book?
About 4
Yeah.
years?
Okay. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, were you able after the book to, like, pick back up with some of your old clients, or did you have to start from scratch?
It's been a challenge. So I had that one 10-month or 10-hour a month client I've kept throughout. Everyone else I've kind of
Mhm.
had to start from scratch.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that's hard.
yeah, and honestly, I think since I've come back, I haven't really gotten back a client base yet.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It definitely takes
since
time.
Yeah, so that's been sort of a work in progress of getting back clients. I think I'm starting um to build that up, but was also getting to a point of maybe I look for a full-time job like after the book. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
total burnout from that and thinking, you know, some time of not searching for clients and not worrying about income sounds pretty nice right now. Um,
Yeah, I very much understand that. I think we all get
yeah.
to a point where we think about having a full-time job, like myself
Mhm.
included. I mean, it's been 6 years. So the past 2 years I haven't really ever thought about getting full-time. I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't even think I could be employed full-time because I just don't think I could, like, handle it. But
Yeah.
I have, of course, like, the entire first 4 years of my career, I was just like, maybe I should get a full-time job. Every time I'm like about to hit my limit, and then somehow a breakthrough would come through right after I'm like at the worst possible moment in life emotionally when it comes to freelancing, you know? I feel like the best thing always happens right after your breaking point, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been honestly, like, the freelance journey has been tough. I think now gotten to 2 points where I've, like, hit that momentum and I'm making good income and doing really well with freelancing, and then, like, some dramatic life event happens where I basically have to stop freelancing, um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just end up losing all of that momentum. So now that that's happened twice, I'm a little bit we'll see.
Skeptical. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I very much understand. Yeah. I consistently would like try to find
Sorry.
no, you're good, you're good. I would like consistently try to find some kind of like excuse or fallback or like reason to not keep pursuing it, and then it would just end up that I was just making my freelance business even smaller and more challenging to stick with because I wasn't actually like giving it my all and focusing on it and believing that it could happen, and like actually finding consistent strategies. Like I realized even when I think I'm doing well and I have momentum and I want to stop marketing and like sending pitches and sending letters of introduction on LinkedIn and like just putting out feelers, that's the time when you should definitely continue, even though it doesn't feel like you have time to just do like 30 minutes or an hour every work morning so that you're consistently driving the needle with that like direct outreach. That's when I started doing that while I was still fully booked. That's when I started seeing better results and referrals, and like I constantly have a stream of incoming clients that I literally can't take on because I have too much work. And that
Yeah.
only happened after I started like marketing myself more than I thought that I should have to be. And that
Mhm.
was so shocking to me. So it's like, but
Yeah.
I'm booked. I shouldn't have to keep marketing.
Right. Yeah, and it's just the ongoing, continual part of that, for sure.
Yeah.
But do
I
you
think the marketing used to feel like a slog for me. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, oh, I actually kind of like the thrill of the hunt. But I only like the
Mhm.
thrill of the hunt because I know that I'm financially secure right now. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Oh, I find there are points where I almost like the thrill of the hunt more than doing the work.
Oh, yeah, totally.
There is a point
Same.
where I'm
Constantly.
like, it's so exciting to get a new client, and then I have the work to do the new client, and I'm like, oh no. It's
Yeah,
almost
yeah, yeah.
like
Totally.
like that reel of like, oh yes, we have the plan. Here is the plan. It's a very good plan. Now we just have
Yes.
to do the plan. Oh, yes, plan, do the plan. Okay.
Yeah,
But
totally. That's exactly it. Because it's also like, I've thought about starting an agency as well, and I've like made a lot of steps towards doing that. But at the same time, like, that's also its own beast. Like, yeah, sure, I can like just get clients for the agency, but I'm gonna have the same problem. Like, I'm still gonna have to strategize for them. I'm still gonna have to like hire and manage writers. I'm still gonna like, you're still gonna have to do work. It's just a different kind of work.
yeah.
And do I want to stick with the business that I've already built and is like rolling on its own? Or do I want to like, I mean, I guess it's not like really starting from scratch because some of those clients could roll into the agency, but it just turns into like the brain space it takes to be in that new position. Like it's like starting a new job or starting a new business. It's very adjacent to what I'm already doing, and it could alleviate the whole like getting clients and then not wanting to have to do the work thing, or it could just turn into like that same
Yeah.
thing again.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
had I had one of my mentors at one point moved into doing more agent or like creating her own agency. And I think there was a point where
Mm-hmm.
she a wonderful mentor, and she really was really transparent with me about her process and everything, and she was uh explained to me at one point when she was working on that agency being like, I think I just like working with my clients and doing the work rather than trying to coordinate with everyone.
Yeah, it's
And
like
that,
orchestrating a circus in a lot of ways, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, I think I've potentially sidetracked your podcast.
No, it's good. I like the tangents. This is nice
Okay.
to have. People are always like, I don't know. I have questions, but I'm really honestly like they're not even in front of me. Like I looked at all your stuff and then I wrote down a bunch of questions I thought I'd want to ask you, and then I just go into it like knowing things about you, because I feel like a casual conversation between friends is so much easier to listen to than like, what is your occupation? How do you do it? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not a great robot.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean I do these interviews with the Freelance Outdoors Woman,
Mhm.
which is the website that I did or that I've created, which is
Mhm.
basically kind of similar to your podcast except written down because
Yeah.
I'm not so much of a talker. So this is weird for me.
Yeah,
But
totally understandable.
um and I really liked the idea of being able to have someone like search for one specific question and then just go to every single person's interview
Mhm.
and just choose that question and be like, I just want to know about that question.
That's
And you
pretty
can't.
cool, yeah. You don't have
Yeah,
to read through everything. That's really nice.
you can just be like, I just want to know how different people are managing their vacation or like how different
That's really cool.
freelancers are doing vacation, and you can go to like 5 or 6. And I've started sort of creating articles in and of itself of just
One
pulling from the
topic.
interviews and just doing that one topic and
That's
quoting
cool.
each freelancer. But it's also possible for people to just be like, I'm gonna look at these 8 freelancers and just skip to the question about imposter syndrome or something and see if
Mm.
they have anything to say about it. And like you end up getting one freelancer's what's imposter syndrome? I don't have it. And
That's
then
amazing.
the rest of them who are like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that. This is how I deal with it. Oh yeah, same. I don't know how I'm dealing with
Yeah.
it yet. I'll let you know.
I love
So
that. That's a really good idea. Because I feel like, I mean, I've listened to a lot of podcasts in my day, but there was a point where I was doing informational interviews when I wanted to start the agency because I wanted to make sure I wanted to do it. And I
mhm,
like looked up interviews with people who had started agencies, and it was just like such a variety of questions and a variety of people. And it just like wasn't really very helpful to me. So I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn and being like, hey, I just have like 4 questions to answer you. Could we just talk for like 15 minutes?
mhm.
And A, speaking face to face with them makes them a good connection. And then B, like gathering just the information about just those questions was so useful. So I feel like this is a useful format for like a lot of things as far as like information sharing goes, because there's so many. I don't want to listen to an hour-long podcast just to find out the answer to one question, you know?
Right, exactly. And obviously with those, not every person has answered the same question, similar to
Mm,
what you're doing, in that it they go off into tangents and they answer questions that
hmm
are specific to their business and their
hmm
experience, and so it doesn't we don't all like I usually cut it off at an hour interview. So I
hmm
think when I was creating that website and when I started doing interviews, I had a list of like 50 questions. Um
hmm
which obviously you don't get through 50 questions in an hour.
Never.
so
Yeah, it's like
I'd end
10
up
maximum.
covering. Right, exactly. So some of them don't have all the exact same questions, but there's enough of the
Mm,
similarities that you can collect different ones. But
yeah,
yeah.
that's great. That makes a lot of sense. So, how
Yeah,
did you get started freelancing, and like why did you get started?
sure. So I right out of college I started I did a fellowship that was 6 months with Outside Magazine. Um kind of
Cool.
got lucky with, well, lucky and resourceful with my contacts because I had done an internship with Climbing Magazine the summer after my junior year and had made contacts there. reached out to the people I'd made contacts who I knew had contacts with outside, and then got a referral to the person who was hiring for the fellowship. Sort of
Nice.
made the short list immediately, which was instrumental for that. But so I finished that internship or that fellowship with a bunch of contacts in the outdoor industry, and didn't really like the idea of trying to find a new full-time job.
Yeah.
So started trying to freelance. And just started from there, pitching magazines, pitching outside, got some contract work with outside, got some articles with climbing, and went from there.
That's awesome. That's a really great start to a freelance career, if I've ever heard one.
I think I got really lucky with it, for sure. There's definitely some of it, like, it's been pretty rocky. Like, I think the first 2 years I lived with my parents just to make it not having to worry about actually making an income for it, or making like a hard income with paying rent or things like that.
Yeah. I remember when I first went full time, the like fluctuation of my income made me want to throw up every day of my life. And my rent was like, at most during that time, my rent was like maybe $600 a month. And then I moved into a place that was $350 a month. And then I moved into a van. But until I moved into the van, the entire like 9 months leading up to that, I was just like constantly worrying about money. And it's really frustrating and annoying. But then you get to a point where like your income surpasses that minimum threshold of what you really need. And this is why I always tell people to set their rates based on what they need to make. So my rates calculator is literally just like, put in your budget, the maximum amount you think you might spend on this category every month. Put in your debt, how much you need to pay off every month, what you want to save. And then it'll calculate from that, like what you actually bare minimum need to make, and including taxes. And I feel like once I realized that I should do it that way and not the like, what is everybody else charging? What do I feel comfortable with? Maybe this is okay method. That's when everything stopped feeling so scary and a lot more like doable, because then I realized like, okay, well, if I'm selling blog posts at like $400 a blog post or whatever minimum, then I need to get this many blog posts on my calendar and I need to get this many clients to do it. And once you start getting work coming in, then it's just like a puzzle of like, how can I make this fit? As long as you're routinely marketing, it'll all fall into place. But before I knew any of these things, I was just like running around with my head chopped off being like, I hope I'm going to make enough money this month to pay my rent and not throw up. And like every week I would be like, maybe I should quit and go get a job. And like, maybe this isn't for me. And my friends used to call it my like quarterly freak out. It was like every 3 months I would just have like a full mental breakdown about like what I was doing with my life.
Oh my God.
But at the end of the day, it's like, if you have a reason you're doing it, you will get there. Like I always wanted to do van life. That was like my whole goal, and I wasn't going to stop until I got there. And having that motivation is really helpful.
Yeah. So you're in a van now.
I'm not
at this
currently.
point. Oh, okay.
No.
Got it.
I did it for a year. My van was like, I had an Astro van, so it was very small, and I couldn't stand up in it, and I had my cat with me.
That's hard.
And it was just like really mentally challenging, and I also got really lonely for a while. Like the first few months were okay, and then after 3 months I was like, I would love to just hang with some friends. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
And my cat just like would meow all the time, so I just didn't get a lot of sleep, and I just started to go crazy. So I decided to move back into an apartment for a while. I definitely want to still travel over the road for like part-time, like 3 or 6 months out of the year. I actually just bought a truck that has a sort of camper. It's like a shell on the back of the truck. Like the cap has like a built-in tent that folds out, the Wilderness. I don't know if you've seen those.
Nice. I have.
So I'm really excited about that. That's going to be definitely not as accessible as van life. Like, you can't stealth camp as easily, and I mean, I could probably stealth camp, but it won't be as just pull up to a parking spot and go to sleepy.
Sure.
But I do think that, like, for what I want to do, it'll be better, and it'll get me further out. One of the things that I really struggled with during van life, I don't know if you have this problem, is like feeling safe when I am near where other people could be. Like, when I thru hiked on the Appalachian Trail, I very rarely felt unsafe, and if I did, it was because we were camped like right next to a road. But like, when you're 10 miles in the woods, like, if someone wants to harm you, they really gotta like fucking work for it. And
Yeah.
it felt like in a van, like, anyone could just like drive up next to me and like do harm. And it never happened, but I definitely like heard stories of it. And it was like, when I was in Utah, a couple of crimes happened like at the campsites I was at, like just weeks before, and I didn't realize it until I like checked the news after I left. Thank God I didn't check the news when I was there, because I wouldn't have slept. But those sorts of things, I'm just like, well, if I have a truck and 4-wheel drive and I go out down like further into the wilderness, perhaps I'll feel a little bit safer. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like safety was a real problem for me mentally.
That's totally fair. I mean, I think it is definitely something I've thought about, and I think there is a certain point or a certain part of that I would be worried about. I think I try to just not think about it to some extent.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, when I'm sleeping, it's totally possible that someone could break one of the van windows and try and get in. I always try and keep my keys near me so that I could like press the car alarm really quickly. Because it has like the little panic button of starting the car alarm.
Yeah.
And
I think
I
also
keep...
like having a modern vehicle is extremely helpful in that situation.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a fob. Like, I just have like a key that works in the door.
Right. Yeah. So that does make a big difference. And I think, but yeah, I guess like parking in parking lots and things, to some extent, I try to not think about it. And then try, like, I'm not gonna try and go park in downtown LA. There's a few times where
certainly
I've
not
parked. I've had to park in Oakland because my folks live there, so I've slept there. But the few times that I have, I've usually ended up connecting with another van life friend and been like, "Where do you park? Like, have you had any issues with this?" And kind of did a little caravan of parking next to each other, just having that feel a little bit safer.
Really nice.
Yeah.
I only knew like 2 other people that were doing van life when I started. So it was and I was like trying to make new friends, but I was also like, I don't know, I just found it really challenging because like van life meetups felt really scary and overwhelming to me. Like, it was not something I wanted to show up to and try to make friends. I am like the most extroverted extrovert there is, but for some reason van life like gatherings scared the shit out of me. I was like, that looks exhausting. I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
Is that how you've primarily made friends, or do you use like the internet or
So like that friend who I connected with in Oakland, I'd actually known before either of us went into van life. So we'd known each other before that, and I sort of saw his entry into like I like saw his whole progress of like I bought the truck. Okay, I bought the truck, the camper to go behind the truck. I've done all this work, and then I got my van, and so we were already friends. I don't have a huge amount of van life friends at this point. I went to my first like van life event thing this past November. I'm actually going to one this weekend. Which I'm hoping will be really fun. So still on the attempting to meet more van lifers and things like that. I am very introverted, so I'm pretty
I think that
happy.
helps with van life.
Yeah, like, I'm okay being by myself for a good chunk of time. Um, but I think for some reason going to events, I think I've gotten pretty used to pushing myself in social situations. Um, so I just sort of show up
Mm,
and see how it goes.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that
I
makes
have no
sense.
clue how this weekend is gonna turn out, but
Of
hopefully
course.
hopefully I'll
When
meet
did
some
you
new
start?
friends.
When did you end up like going full time with family?
So I started last December. So about a year ago, my one of my cousins actually had built out his own van
Hmm.
himself, and he wasn't going to be using it over the winter or for a while because he had his own house and things that he was working on separately. So he actually
Mm.
reached out to me and asked if I wanted to borrow. Like, he knew I was sort of interested in van life and was like, that's a really big monetary commitment. Why don't you
Hmm.
pay for like insurance on my van and borrow my van for like 6 months and
That's
see if you
really
still like
nice.
it. Yeah, it was it was clutch. I was very, very, very lucky with that.
Mm.
But so he was like, you have to fly out to Florida and drive the van from Florida and then drive the van back to
Yeah.
Florida at the end, but because he lives in Florida, so that's where the van was.
Hmm.
But so yeah, I started off with that van and then got this one in June. Um, so
Nice.
yeah.
That's great. Did you buy your second van like pre-built?
Yeah, I did a lot of research into it and was thinking about like, do I want to do my own build or anything?
Hmm.
Um, and just decided that I wanted it before the next year and didn't really have time to put
Yeah.
in like hundreds of hours to build out my own
It
at
takes
this
so much time.
exactly. And I was like, I don't think I
Yeah.
have that experience or that time available right now to try and build it out. So I got a loan and bought a bougie ass van.
That's great. That's awesome.
Um,
Yeah, I guess like my main concern with like being a freelancer and trying like I thought about buying a better van when I decided that like that van that I was in was just like not was part of why van life wasn't working out for me. But the more I looked into it, the more I was like, because of my tax write-offs and the way that I've been earning, it just made it look like my income was pretty small and I didn't have a very good credit score because I didn't get my first credit card until I was like 25. So
mhm.
it was only like 3 or 4 years ago. And so the loan options were like abysmal for me.
Yeah,
And I feel like that's one of the things as a freelancer that like you don't think about before you need it. And like same with
right.
buying a house, like I'm going to have to claim every single cent on my taxes for 2 years
Mhm.
before I could even qualify for a mortgage. And
Yeah.
those are I don't mind having those downsides as I'm not really trying to buy a house and I'm not really trying to buy a van anymore. But like those are definitely two downsides to freelancing that I feel like nobody really talks about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think there's a whole lot of privilege of where I'm sitting right now because the loan came from my parents. So there wasn't
Oh, that's really
a
nice.
a credit there wasn't a credit check that I needed to pass or anything. They knew I was good for it and
Yeah.
they were, pretty uh flexible on how much I could
Yeah.
use for things like that. So that a
Yeah.
loan, but a very forgiving loan that the bank is
Yeah. Yeah.
very uh yeah, as my parents sometimes say,
Yeah.
the bank of mom and
Honestly though,
dad.
like if you have if you have access to it, like use it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot of people poo-poo that privilege and will like try to make you feel bad about it because they don't have that privilege. But like quite frankly, if you want to succeed in this world and you have any connection to anything that's going to help you, why would you not use it? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like if I had that opportunity, I would use it. Like I would be doing the same thing as you. I cannot lie about that. And I
Right.
think that anybody who's like sitting on the other side judging that is just like probably jealous and disappointed that they're not in that position. And it sucks that not everybody can have that, but
Right.
like
And
also
that's
why wouldn't you take advantage of it? Like they would do the
right.
same thing if they were you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's sort of where I've like made my peace with it as well. It's like it's not that having this privilege is bad, it's just that I wish that more people were able to have that privilege.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that's how my van journey has gone. And then of course, even though it's a nice built out van, it's like
There's
a
always problems.
so many problems. Like there's more problems with this one than my cousin's, and it's like every single day I find a new problem and I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
And then you get one problem fixed and the technician creates a new problem. I'm like, dang,
yeah.
why did you have to screw a hole in the ceiling?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's part of the struggle of van life is like the constant mechanical or like physical problems with your build that you have to just be okay with like one thing after another managing. And I feel like that's true of like home ownership of like an older home as well. It's like a similar boat.
Absolutely.
And I'm just like not here for these. I bought a Toyota truck. I bought a pretty reliable shell. The cap came with it. Like I have nothing to complain about. My dad's a mechanic, so he's like helping me fix it. And that, because the van, I had a Chevy and I never had a single mechanical problem with it. And it was amazing. That I didn't have to worry about it mechanically. I didn't even replace the tires were like balding by the time I moved out of it. I definitely should have replaced them earlier, but I didn't realize it. But other than that, like not a single problem with that van, and it had like 225,000 miles on it. And other than the fact that like the roof leaked and the floor was wet underneath the subfloor and like getting moldy and it was too small, like just knowing your van is mechanically sound was such a huge thing for me. And I just can't imagine like living in a van full time again if I had to deal with mechanical problems on top of that, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, if I think about it too hard, it makes me scream a little bit because so the van I got is a 2022 Ram ProMaster and it had 13,000 miles on it.
That's so low.
So practically brand new.
Yeah.
The brakes have failed on me once.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like there are things that are still going wrong. Like the electricals are questionable. Sometimes some of the lights decide to go out. Well, okay, just the license plate light. But and I haven't dealt with that because it's been on like my non-essential list of problems.
Yeah, it's at like the bottom of the list of things to fix.
Yeah,
totally.
it's like,
I feel that.
But it's also because it's like that license plate light, it's so new, it shouldn't be going out.
It shouldn't have broken. Yeah.
It's an electrical issue. Because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so there's a fuse or a wire that is not connected right. And that's gonna be
and tracking
more work.
that down in a vehicle of that size is like freaking pointless. That's so frustrating.
We're just like, okay, later. I can't handle that right now.
It's so funny to see. I mean, like, I feel like I have this in daily life too. Like, I really need to get a new dentist, but I just keep saying I'm going to do it later. Or like, I really need to go to the eye doctor. I'm just going to do it later. Or like, I have recently, ever since it got cold out, in the floors that are like the original wood floors in this house that don't have laminate over them, I have like random ants just keep popping up out of nowhere. gonna deal with it later, you know?
Oh my
And it's
gosh,
fun.
yeah.
Like, this is life, right? Like, we always have that like unscheduled to-do list that is just gonna keep coming back to haunt us. But at the same time, I feel like because what you're living with is like everything feels so much more like acute and important when you're living in a vehicle, especially, or when you're freelancing. Like, the things that I keep putting off on my work schedule, I'm just like, this is gonna fuck me over if I don't get it done. You
Yeah,
know?
I think I was gonna say, I think it makes it like that list becomes even more essential and problematic when you're freelancing, because it's
Yeah.
like those there are things where you're like, I don't need to get this done right now. I need to get this written,
Mhm.
or I need to get this work done.
Yeah.
And
Just like deadline or what you're getting paid or
yeah,
when you're getting paid. Yeah.
right. And that the stress of that is, or there's certain times where, like, I know I have this work and I need to get it done and I need to get paid. There's a leak
Mhm.
leaking onto my bed right now. I'm not gonna focus on. I can't
Yeah.
focus
Yeah.
on the work because
Of
my
yeah.
duvet is drenched. So that's gonna
Of
take
course.
importance.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
like,
that makes a
cool.
lot of sense.
My van is in the shop for a week. I guess I'm finding housing and doing
Yeah.
this, and that ends up sidelining freelance work at times. And
Mhm.
it's
I think the
that's
advantage of being a
certainly
freelancer in that situation though is like you can get another client to change your income, or like you're not on an 8 to 4 schedule or 9 to 5 schedule every day. So you can be like, hey, this is just going to be late. I'm going to have it to you by Wednesday instead, or something like that.
yeah,
That freedom of freelancing, like while it is hard to take on a new client or find a new client sometimes, or it is like sometimes the last straw to tell a client that something's going to be late again, it's still like I couldn't imagine having a full-time remote job and like having to be online from 9 to 5 while dealing with all that bullshit and like really not having a choice about it. Or like if you do take that sick day, like that's one less sick day that you can take later, or it's going to be your vacation days or like whatever. I
right.
just feel like when I was on the road, I was just so grateful to be a freelancer because there were just so many days where like, oh, this is the nicest day. It's been raining in Moab for 3 days. It's finally been sunny for 48 hours. We want to go climb. We're going to fucking go do it. And I'll just work on Saturday instead of Tuesday like I planned, right?
Yeah. And I've definitely taken advantage of that a fair amount as a freelancer.
I
So,
feel like it's
yeah,
helpful to acknowledge the both and of the situation. Like,
absolutely.
it's so easy for us, and I think this is just like a human condition thing in general. Like, I've talked about this with my therapist so many times of like being able to hold both, like understanding that freelancing is risky and sometimes it sucks and sometimes you can't qualify for loans that you need, and sometimes, you know, you lose a client, or sometimes it's hard to get clients, or sometimes you get tired of running on the hamster wheel. But at the same
Right.
time, like if you had a full-time job, it would probably suck worse for you in other ways that you're currently taking advantage of. And like being in van life sucks sometimes, but also like your 50 hike thing would have been so much harder and probably in the long run more expensive if you didn't live in a van.
Right.
And that book like wouldn't have been as profitable for you and as fun to write and as like easy of an opportunity for you to get if you
Yeah.
hadn't already put yourself in this position. Or, you
Right.
know, there's always like a positive and a negative to every single thing. And I
Yeah.
love that we can like look at and discuss both, because I feel like especially in the van life world on social media, like a lot of people don't want to talk about the negatives of like my
Right.
roof is leaking, my van broke down, it's brand new, my license plate light should fucking work.
Right.
Because we
Exactly.
are so excited about like, oh, my
Yeah.
backyard's the beach today. It's like, well,
Right.
congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have the positives of being like, yeah, my backyard's the beach today, or like I woke up in Moab and watched the sunset or sunrise in Canyonlands, sort of thing, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Love that.
yeah,
And then it's
yeah.
like, well, since I got it in June, I've had the water heater fail, the fan break, the fan start leaking. I had an ant
Oh my
infestation.
god.
The brakes stopped working, the license plate light, the the window is leaking, the other fan is leaking. Um, and the list goes on. But
there's just no in between of like the things you can experience.
yeah, and it's like both of those things are true, absolutely. So often I've gotten into the habit of when people ask me like how van life is going or how I like it, I've just said, well, net positive so far.
Yeah. I feel like it's just hard to admit sometimes or to realize until you like write down on paper everything that like a lot of times it's 50-50, and that's true of everything in life. And the same can go for freelancing, the same can go for through hiking, the same can go for living a normal life in an apartment, whatever you want to put it towards. It can always there it's very rare that something is just like neutral ground content if it is meaningful for you, right? Like if it is something worth saying out loud to another person when they ask you how something is, it's probably meaningful for you, which means it's probably not neutral, which means it's probably one or either negative or positive, and we're here for the 50-50. Like there's
Yeah.
they're both
Going
there.
for,
like
yeah.
living that's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thanks for keeping it real with me.
no problem. Definitely here for keeping it real. I think that is something I probably excel more than I should to some extent.
No, it's great.
Like,
it's great.
people are like, "Oh wow, your life is amazing," and I'm like,
Sure. Sometimes. 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, okay. I realize I think this interview has been almost entirely a tangent. So,
no, it's great.
But,
this is
okay.
awesome. We talked about your book. We talked about your website. We talked about van life.
True,
We
yeah.
talked about freelancing. I feel like we did a good job. This was like all the topics I really wanted to hit. So I'm
great.
happy.
Perfect. Love it. Glad to hear it.
Do you want to tell people where they can find you online and like what you can offer them, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Joe_Flashman. I was like almost to the point of, do I double check that? Did not prepare for that. Or at my website, johannaflashman.com. LinkedIn, Johanna Flashman. And I offer blog post writing, sort of freelance writing in that sense, copywriting, SEO strategy, and management, and occasional like editing, working on some potential book editing projects that so lots of different, bit of a jack of all trades in that way.
It's perfect.
Work with words and Google.
Hell yeah. I'll make sure I include all those links in the description to the show too, so people can just click them right
Thank you.
in the episode. Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Awesome. I think right now I don't have an exact schedule for release because I'm changing when episodes come out. They used to come out on Mondays, but I'm gonna switch it up a little bit, probably Tuesdays going forward. So I will let you know like the weekend before it's gonna come out so you can share it on your socials. I'll also send you a link to a Google Drive file that has like video previews if you want to share those. I'm switching away from like Instagram marketing because I just really don't like it. So I'll mostly be marketing it on the newsletter, LinkedIn, and maybe potentially TikTok. So
cool.
Yeah. Probably
sounds good.
Will be in February. Oh, when does your book come out?
My book comes out officially April 2nd.
Okay.
So, cool. So there is still a good, like, take your time if you need to push this one back. I will say I was holding back on actually sharing it for the podcast, but I'm currently going into a second interview for a full-time job with as a content specialist. Which would be it would be an amazing job. It's like a 32-hour a week full-time salary
Oh
situation
yeah.
that is pretty much fully remote and very flexible. So kind of all of the good things of freelancing plus a stable income without having to search for clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep
And
me
doing,
posted. If you get
yeah,
it, I will, put a little note in the end credits.
yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I have the it seems promising. I have the second interview on Monday.
Cool.
In which case some of what I've said is still worthwhile, but
Yes.
there is the part that I will only be freelancing part-time at that point. I'll probably still keep some
Yeah,
freelance
that's totally
clients,
fine.
but yeah.
Yeah. I think that's
Um
reasonable. Yeah, that would be a lot.
yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping even if I do get it, I'm still hoping I'd like to try and keep up the freelance outdoorswoman, even if I'm only freelancing part. I'll be a little bit of a fraud of creating that website, but then not actually
No.
being a full-time freelancer. But
I feel like every freelancer has like done part-time freelancing at some point in their career. Like we've
right,
all done it, and I think that
yeah,
that's okay. It
right,
never used to be like what you should want to do full time. It was always like a side hustle until like 2020 when the world shut down, you know?
right, yeah. And I mean, like I think that was part of the website as well, of just like I wanted to find people who were doing it full time because that's what I was doing, and it seemed like no one
Mm-hmm.
was doing that. But
Yeah.
and now I might not be doing that, but we'll see. Um
That's life. It's messy.
yeah, yeah. But at some point it'd be really cool to get you on the freelance outdoors woman too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, send me the
I know that
info.
this
Yeah.
this interview definitely made me think about all the questions I wanted to ask you. So
Okay. Hell yeah. I would love to. Anytime. Shoot me an
awesome.
email. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Cool.
Cool. Well, it was really good to meet you. And
Yeah.
you should be so proud of yourself, dude, for like all the stuff you've done so far. Even, not even just a book, like
Thank you.
making it this far in this lifestyle is like, it really means something. Most people don't make it more than a year of van lifing. I can tell you that from experience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, who knows? I guess there's a lot of work with my therapist that
Yep, same. Yeah, we love therapy.
yeah, yeah. But connecting with other freelancers is really great. It's something
Yeah,
I
for
want to
sure.
do more of for sure.
That's like the only reason
Um,
I have the podcast, just like an excuse to talk to other freelancers.
that was basically the freelance outdoors woman. It was like I want to network,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be creepy.
Yeah,
So,
totally. Yeah.
so let me do this website so I can ask other women freelancers in the outdoors world like all of the questions are that no one seems to answer.
Yeah, totally. Oh man.
Yeah,
Well, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on.
of course.
And I will keep you
Yeah,
posted, probably
sounds
via
good.
email.
Okay, that works. Great.
Cool. All right. Have a good rest of your day.
Okay. Yeah, you too. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.